All right, everyone, welcome back to the Pair Program. Tim Winkler here alongside Mike Gruen. So, Mike, I was going to ask you, this past weekend, we took Alice to a Caps game. And we had taken her previously when she was like 3 months, and we had like the whole like headphone set. Have you taken your kids to like sporting events or concerts when they were younger? Did you do that? I was always curious because I was doing some research on this of like, well, what's the decibels? What's the safe zone for kids to go without the earmuffs?
So we did. And my oldest, actually, when he was, it's funny that you asked that because I still have the headsets. I use them for when I'm using the chainsaw because we ended up having to get bigger pairs. Because my oldest was actually really sensitive to noise, like all the way through like first grade or I guess kindergarten. And so like fire alarms, all kinds of things. So yeah, we anytime we were going into like a loud venue, definitely use them with the older one. Probably more lax with the younger one because that's just how that goes.
Yeah, that's right.
So my younger one's going to have, ringing in his ears and all the rest of it. But
well, we actually forgot them. We were going to bring them. We forgot them. She's 15 months, but we were just, as soon as we got in, just kind of looking around, seeing like, oh, okay, there's a ton of little babies here. So we weren't,
I would
no
say,
headphones, no public shaming.
Yeah. I would say Cap Center, like for a Caps game, it's super loud there.
It does get loud.
Yeah. There's even reports that they pipe the crowd noise back in over the PA to make it even louder, which is
okay. Sounds like a New York Rangers.
I mean, the Rangers.
Rumor.
No, the Rangers do it too. Every venue does it. They're not supposed to, but they do.
Long and short, it was loud. Caps won, and Ovi had 2 goals, so it was a good outing. Cool. All right, let's just jump into the episode we've got for today. So we're going to be focusing on a conversation that sits kind of at this intersection of talent, recruiting, and veterans, specifically discussing the special skills that veterans bring to tech and the emerging roles for them in the industry. Veterans play a critical role in tech sectors that are crucial, obviously, to like national security. So areas like cybersecurity and energy. We'll hear firsthand from a former Army recruiter turned startup founder of a company on a mission that is designed to help veterans transition to the civilian world, as well the co-founder of a venture firm that's backing this really interesting startup. So our first guest is Steve Chang. Steve's a distinguished former Special Forces officer and the founder of Headlamp. And joining Steve is Jeremy Hitchcock. Jeremy's a trailblazer, former tech entrepreneur as well, multiple co-founder of multiple startups, and he's currently the co-founder of New North Ventures. Thank you both for joining us on the podcast today, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hey, excited to be here.
Absolutely. All right. Now, before we do dive into the discussion, we are going to kick things off with our Pair Me Up segment. Mike, you go ahead and lead us off, bud. What you got today?
So we're going back to food. I thought about this a lot. It's going to be bananas and maple syrup, but hold on. It's not like I just drown maple syrup on bananas or drown bananas in maple syrup. I like pancakes with bananas, and I also like French toast with bananas. And then I realized it's really just they're just maple syrup delivery factories systems. So it's really the bananas and the maple syrup that are the key to that. So that's my pairing. It's been a while since I've done food, so I figured I'd go back to that well.
Food's welcome here. I'll let you try that out with so Alice, she's obsessed with bananas. So we're all about trying anything. And I think our last guest had the bananas and the was it the marshmallow fluff?
No, he was doing peanut butter and marshmallow fluff, bananas and
peanut butter and marshmallow fluff.
But I will say my mom, when she made banana pancakes, the bananas were sliced into the batter. Like it was cooked. The bananas were cooked into the pancakes. I much prefer that to put the bananas on top at the end. Then it's just, now you're just having fruit on top of your pancakes. I like it actually in the pancake. So there you go.
Good intel. Banana connoisseur. Cool. Yeah, right. I dig that. I'm going to actually go with the food pairing as well. So something that we had a couple of years ago at a breakfast spot out in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I've been a fan of it ever since. It's kind of become a little bit of a staple in our household, but it's this combination of an egg and cheese sandwich and strawberry preserves. So it's this combination of like the sweet with the preserves and then the savory with the egg and cheese, and you throw it on an English muffin and just treat yourself. If you haven't tried that, just it's a pretty good combo. I recommend like a Vermont cheddar too if you're going for a nice cheese on top of the egg. But give it a shot. Add the jelly, add the preserves, and it's a righteous combo.
That sounds good. I do like.
It is good.
I do like that.
Yeah. All right, keeping a breakfast theme here. Let's see if we can switch it up here. Let's pass it over to our guest, Steve. How about a quick intro and your pairing?
Yeah, Tim, thanks. So Steve Chang, I'm a retired Army Special Forces officer, like you said, and founder of a company called Headlamp, which we'll talk about. I don't know. I guess I'm going to break from the breakfast theme, and I thought about this to try to stay on brand. It's like the comfy couch and a Saturday, like that wasn't me. So for me, the pairing is early spring, late winter, sort of in Boston, and the start of soccer season. And it's just this like beautiful, getting outdoors finally. It's still horrible. We were out there last weekend. It was 35 degrees and rainy, on the field. And it's just, you're getting drenched, but you're finally back out, and the kids are out there. Soccer is pretty much what I do when I'm not working. Kids are out there running around, and then, you get all dried up, you get back home, and it's just it's great to get back outdoors. So soccer and early season. So that's my pairing.
Nice.
How many kids you got?
3 kids, they're like high school and middle school. So,
okay.
Yeah. So a little bit older. We've been doing this for a while,
Yeah. Soccer's a great sport for for kids getting into it. And I played growing up as well. Didn't play into high school, but it gets pretty serious when she started thinking about like, travel leagues and club teams, stuff like that. But it's a commitment for sure. 3 kids.
Yeah. I played when I was little, and then took a break, and then played all through high school. It was great. Loved it.
Nice.
No, definitely. The whole thing is a huge business, and it's a racket, but they've got it watched in, and we've been out there for many, many seasons. So our weekends are shot, but it's great. So
yeah, I mean, youth sports at large is just becoming this obsessive space, and it's actually like, speaking of startups, we worked with a company in the past called Game Changer that does a lot of like the data and live streaming of youth like baseball sports. I think Dick's owns it. Dick's Sporting Goods owns it, but just an insane movement. I think it seems like in the last like 10 plus years of just parents becoming uber obsessed with the youth sports. But it is what it is. I think it's a hobby for them just as much as it is for the kids. Cool. All right, let's pass it over to Jeremy. How about a quick intro and your pairing?
All right, great to be here. Intro for me, co-founder and director at New North Ventures, early stage venture fund, backing things at the intersection of innovation and national security. And as you said, prior to this, started a bunch of things, had a fun time doing that for the tech space for a bunch of years, building stuff. And my pairing, I'm going to stay on breakfast, because I could stay on breakfast if it's morning, lunch, or evening. Sorry, Steve. So I mean, I feel like it's an all the time thing, and I definitely want to draft off the maple syrup thing, because it's maple syrup season. I hope everybody's getting their sugaring going on. We're certainly no different, getting the sap, boiling it down, and making some fine New Hampshire maple syrup. That is the finest.
Well done.
My wife's got family in Vermont, so they'd probably have to argue a little bit with you in terms of the finest. But what is it? What is it you're throwing that on? Is it your pancakes, waffles? What's that breakfast of choice for you?
Well, they're different. I mean, the waffles, they have the little little spots for all the
little nooks and
maple syrup to
crannies.
put it in. Nooks and crannies, just like an English muffin, but you put the preserves in. But you get a little bit more air interaction going on with the maple and the pancakes. Pancakes is just like you get it done. Like we're gonna get some maple syrup on a delivery vehicle, and we're gonna get the maple syrup in the mouth as quickly as possible.
I dig it.
No shots of maple syrup though. I think that's probably a little too much.
Yeah, I go back and throw in chicken, fried chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles.
Chicken waffles, delicious.
I'll go for it. Yeah.
I might have to just cut this podcast short and go grab some food. I'm getting hungry here just talking about it.
I mean, I had to skip breakfast because we're doing a morning one. So
That's right.
Hope it's New Hampshire maple syrup you're going to find.
Cool. All right, let's transition from the food and dive into the discussion here. So the way I kind of see this conversation flowing, I'd like to begin with Steve and Steve, giving our listeners just a little bit more additional context on your background and your journey leading up to Headlamp, as this story clearly plays a part into why you built Headlamp, and then obviously expand a little bit more into like what Headlamp is doing and how it's solving some of these problems. Why don't you kick that off, and then we can pass it over to Jeremy and learn a little bit more about how you guys intersected.
Yeah. So thanks for that. And thanks for the chance to talk about this. I mean, I tend to run into missions and I have a hard time setting them down. Like I'm a little bit obsessive when it comes to that. And a few years back, one of the formative things that happened is I came up to New England and I was put in charge of the Army recruiting battalion. Spent like 18 years of my career in infantry, special operations, like doing all that kind of stuff. And, had a few things in training and that kind of thing, but, was mostly operationally focused. And so they, at the end of all that, decided, hey, the best spot for Steve for his development is to send him up to New England and try to do recruiting. And, for all the recruiters who might be Army recruiters, especially who might be listening out there, like they know New England is a tough spot to recruit from for the military. Everyone's going to college. Everyone's, got great opportunities ahead of them. Not a lot of military presence, that kind of stuff. And I guess what happened is, as I got into that mission, I started really diving, because I'm trying to accomplish our mission. And we had to figure this out. Just saw like how young people are making their decisions, where they're ending up. And, we ended up changing our tactics a little bit. We started targeting college dropouts because, as much as the kids were going to college from here, they were dropping out. Not all of them were graduating. And so we started approaching them and, offering them a lifeline, a job, chance to pay off loans, that kind of thing. So, what that shed light on for me, I guess, is tying it back to Headlamp, is like the quality of veterans that we have in the military. This isn't your World War II, Vietnam era veterans. It's, not even Gulf War, early Gulf War, right? This is a highly technically, technical acumen, high aptitude. It's really hard to get into the military these days. And so, I'm fast forwarding and I'm mixing some of the years up on our journey, but, sort of ended up realizing, as I was going through the process of leaving the military myself, that the system to support veterans as they're leaving the service is just broken, and it's not, it's not very well organized. It's not, meant to optimize anything. It's really just haphazard. And then, on the flip side, employers are just missing out on just so much talent. I mean, we're talking about 7% of the workforce is veterans out there. And if you have a sort of blind spot on how to bring in veterans into your workforce, you can't be successful. So, went to business school. As I was leaving the military, decided and kind of knew that I wanted to be entrepreneurial. Figured out that, of all the things I know veterans the best. Maybe we'll talk about some of the early things I tried to do, but, focused on transitioning veterans and realizing that there's just, immense value coming out of the force, and, how do we optimize it? And then, as I started talking to folks like Jeremy and the circles that we run in, like this isn't just important for veterans, important for employers, but this is like a national security thing. Like this is an extremely potent talent pool that if we're not tapping into, if we're not utilizing properly, don't want to go too extreme on this, but we need to do that in order to create a secure democracy and those sorts of things. So I'll stop there. See where else you want to head.
Yeah. No, it's a really fascinating subject, and we actually held an episode not too long ago, specifically centered around military spouse unemployment and how that was a national security issue. And so after following up on that conversation, I wanted to make a point to get an episode centered around veterans transitioning as well, because I don't think there's enough awareness about it. I think it is for example, the military spouse unemployment is a national security issue as well, and so when you bring it into that light, it is something that I think people need to be aware of. I think corporations need to be privy to it, and how do we solve that problem? So I think that's a good segue right into Headlamp, right? So what is Headlamp? Give us the pitch on Headlamp, and how are you solving this problem with the technology?
No, thanks. Lately, I've been describing Headlamp as a giant bonfire, and I am just like trying to solve lots of issues. But what I would say is Headlamp is Jeremy gets a kick out of that. Headlamp's it's a veteran transition accelerator. Our mission, we serve two customers. We serve veterans that are leaving active duty service and looking for help as they exit the military and try to navigate the private sector for the first time in their lives. For most of them, anywhere from 150 to 250,000 a year, just depending on sort of how things are going on the macro scale. So that's a lot of people who need help. And then at the same time, we are serving employers who are trying to gain a competitive advantage. They're trying to, achieve some objectives. They're trying to, generate some value for their firm, their stakeholders, whatnot. And we tend to think the ones that are willing to talk to us, they're smart because they understand that there's a competitive advantage to be had by talking to veterans. So we serve as a veteran transition accelerator, operate a bit of a marketplace in the sense that, we're serving these two sides, but really, and this is maybe where the technology can, start talking about technology can come towards. It really is like this in the center of our operation. Making sure that we have a human in the loop, right? We have this person, we call them career liaison officers. Funny story on that. I was initially, we had a tech advisor and he had, done some work with Stitch Fix. And so we came up on this concept of the stylist that they have, right? Put the stylist at the middle and we're like, oh, career stylist. That sounds, that's swanky. That's fancy.
It's fancy.
Let's get these veterans, retiring veterans, and make them career stylists. And I was talking to just a friend, and he's like, "That does not sound military at all. Like, dude, you have to change this up." And so we brainstormed over coffee and came up with the career liaison officer. Very military sounding, still career focused. Whatever we call them, they function as recruiters. They function as mentors to the veterans. They function as interface with HR, but they play a critical role in sort of communicating context between the two parties. Because there's a lot of stuff. Sorry about keep clearing my throat. You can just edit those out. I keep at the center of it. So there are a lot of things out there that are trying to automate this completely. And this is maybe where, again, we can talk about the technology. It's like, yeah, there's technology for technology's sake to do this. Let me look at your ratings and your MOSs and, all the skills that the military gave you. And then we'll tell you what you can do at different firms. And it's like, but people don't operate that way. They don't want to be told. I know from a recruiting, it's like an early insight I had. What somebody's doing in the military oftentimes, and probably, most of the time, has nothing to do with what they're interested in, what they're capable of doing. From a recruiting perspective, little secret to all these future recruits, but like what you're being shown is, that's what you're being pushed towards is the mission for the day, right? We're trying to fill some infantry folks. Hey, we're trying to fill some truck drivers. Like there's a big mission on the other side of it, right? For the military. And so, pigeonholing people to what they did in the military is like, that's a recipe for failure. And so having senior NCOs who understand that, um, spending the time to talk to the veterans as they're coming out and having, getting the context about what they're interested in, where, sort of what's that trajectory that they're on. That's really, important for us. And so that's where we've spent a lot of our time. So that's Headlamp. That's what we do. And, boils down to those guys.
It's fascinating. I've got a number of follow-up questions in terms of, how you guys, how you're matching skills and so forth. But I want to loop Jeremy in at this point. And Jeremy, give us, I guess, a little bit of the backstory on how you got connected with Steve, and then, a little bit more on New North Ventures.
Sure. So the first time, and I'm curious if Steve remembers this, but I was a community college trustee for the community college system of New Hampshire, 7 community colleges touching about 30,000 students in New Hampshire. And we were doing a workforce development event in the morning. No waffles that morning, so obviously very sad going back to our breakfast story. I just want to keep on story, but we're hanging out at some ridiculously early morning, which I'm not a big morning event thing, but was doing basically the state of employment in the state of New Hampshire, and I had gotten into workforce development through the fact of being outside of Boston, running a company at the time that was hiring a lot of high tech people. And every time I complained, people would say, well, go do something about it. Well, okay, that's fair. Let's go do something about it. And so I ended up in the community college system because I felt that was one of the places where, from a skills perspective, there was some of the most leverage that was to be done there. So afterwards, Steve came up and said, "Oh, we're doing like this thing and this whatever." And to be honest, I really don't remember the pitch. I remember it wasn't that great, but I remember Steve. I was like, "Oh, this guy really wants to like climb up a wall that's going to lead to nowhere. Maybe you should do these other couple things instead." And we kept in touch. And I'm being a little pejorative. It wasn't that bad, Steve. But yeah,
It's fair. It's fair.
No, it's not completely fair. I mean, that's the iteration side of business. We kept in touch, and then a couple years later, he was in the kind of the new version of what is now Headlamp, and we got excited about it because it's not. And we had a bunch of discussion internally, like recruiting and people. There's a lot of technology that supports that, and that's all venture funded. But in the sense of this essentially matching or thinking about how to do upskilling, transition, it does have a bit more of a mission driven than it does a venture scale aspect when you first look at it. But when you look at some of the technology that you can develop and some of the problems that you can actually solve around, there's a variety of critical infrastructure areas that people are hiring for. I mean, if you ever try to hire an engineer, person's doing user experience, semiconductor design, it's full employment. It is still full employment, and you have literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Steve would probably know the exact number of people who are transitioning out of the military who have had years of what Steve said, like, hey, you know what? This year you're going to be a recruiter. Hey, this year you're going to do underwater welding. This year you're going to go do cyber stuff. This year you're going to, some of those have a bit more of a long-term transition, but that mentality of being able to pick up, go somewhere, work in a team, excel, learn a bunch of hard skills, that is something that employers are looking for because their needs are also changing. So we got very excited about the concept of Headlamp, of thinking about how that is really a beachhead into a variety of other things. Again, looking at this need for satisfying demands of employers looking for talent.
Jeremy, one thing you said that I just wanted to pick up on, the work on a team thing. So a long time ago, I joked that I was the diversity hire at this company, Red Owl, because I was the first non-military hire they made. So everybody there was about seven or eight people, all in the military. And one thing that impressed me beyond anything else was just that aspect of teamwork. Everybody there, they're on the same team. We're fighting. There was just such an alignment. And all the, like it just permeated the culture of the company. This get to alignment quickly, get on that mission, get on, and move forward, like not debate everything forever and stuff like that. And I think that that's such a value that you can't put enough emphasis on, and something that so many veterans bring to the table. I loved my time working with all those guys. I'm still in touch with a lot of them. And yeah, it was a great experience. So I think the whole like work as a team thing cannot be undervalued. And I just wanted to underscore that since you mentioned it.
Yeah, and the soft skills aspect is also a real, that's another one that's a real challenge. And I think that's one of the insights that Steve has, is it's not just, oh, okay, like this is my MOS, this is like what I did, but that aspect of, a lot of these people are joining when they're in they're youngins, they're in their teens, maybe early 20s, and they're forced to work with people and live with people that they don't get to choose. And guess what? That changes. And so you know what you figure out how to do? You figure out how to cut through the noise and work with people maybe you don't like, but be able to respect other people's perspective because they're coming from different geographies, different skill sets. They're younger than them. They're older than them. They're different everything. And that is something I think that as companies have continued to evolve, trying to increase that perspective is so important because they're serving usually a global audience. And that aspect of having a funnel of talented people who are used to that and who can excel in that and often train other people. That I think is a priceless thing. It's hard to measure, but I think in time that'll show itself much better.
Yeah, the adaptability is a key one. The other one, as you were talking, I was remembered, is I think there's a big misconception outside of the military that the military is a very top-down like organization where everything is like, the guys at the bottom don't have a lot of decision-making capability. But the fact of the matter is it's not that way at all. There's the plan, but like everything, like yes, there's some sort of battle plan or whatever. But the fact of the matter is it's the guys on the ground that are making a lot of those decisions and are empowered to do so. And I think that's another big misconception outside of the military or people in the military that they just follow orders, but that's not the case at all. I think that's another one that's worth dispelling. Great teamwork, adaptability, able to think on their feet, stuff like that.
Now, Mike, that's what I was saying earlier about, the difference of our military today versus maybe, what we read about or the movies we watched in the past. And yeah, sure, there's that element of the chain of command and learning how to follow orders, but that's like basic training. That's the first few months of your life. Just so, because you are taking people from across the U.S., every demographic, every different group, right? Because the military is meant to reflect the population it serves. And so, the recruiters are out there in every community and you bring them all into training. And so you have to figure out how to turn them into a team, get them to work together. But then, once you get out there and you're into the force, I mean, especially if you're overseas and you're working operations, you talk about the strategic corporal, right? It's these young people have to make these decisions. And because of the way the world is, the action of an 18, 19, 20-year-old could have strategic, impacts. And so you have to train them, you have to trust them, and you have to, enable that. And I can't say enough about sort of the quality of the veterans, their abilities, their soft skills, leadership team, all that. And it just depends on the other thing is like veterans aren't monolithic, right? It's, they're just not one group. They run the entire spectrum of everything, in any dimension you're thinking about. And so, that's been our approach, again, not to just keep talking about Headlamp, but like I said, I can't put a mission down. So like we're going to figure this thing out, but you got to help each individual. Right. And so.
We're here to talk about Headlamp, so you can keep talking about Headlamp. We run a tech recruiting company as the backbone of our business, and we primarily focus on startups, and I think that's such a unique environment, right? Because a lot of these skills that you describe here, it's like they coincide with what a lot of startups are looking for, right? So this level of scrappiness, this ability to, kind of like Mike, you alluded to it, like almost like being autonomous, right? Like, it can't be handheld. You can't be babysat all day. Like, trust that you'll be able to go out there and make decisions and adaptability, right? Of course, like, it's kind of ever changing. It's growing. Like, how are you going to multitask and wear multiple hats? So I'm curious to know on SkillBridge side, on the employer side of things, do you find trends in the size of company that has interest in participating and hiring up some of these veterans, or is it truly across the board, anything from Fortune 500s down to scrappy startups?
Yeah, so I didn't mention SkillBridge earlier too. Just quick plug on that. SkillBridge is a DoD program that allows service members in the last 6 months to go into a place of future employment and work there while the government pays. So they're not unpaid interns. Their salary, their benefits, all that continues. And it's a great tool to enable. And so we help employers leverage that. We've had companies that, like you described, these defense technology, dual use startup community places looking for just, we need 1 or 2 veterans that can help us break into this market, or, be an end user, subject matter expert. The amount of technology, by the way, like that our service members have in their hands and that they're trained on a day-to-day basis. Like, I'm jealous now because I'm starting to get dated, right? Like there are things that, guys that in my old units, they have that it's just like, man, that would have been fantastic a few years ago. So, that the level of technical acumen is incredibly high. And with, the increase in defense technology, investment going on, at least, from the surface, it looks like that's happening. It's a great fit because you have all these, young people who are hungry with all those things we talked about, soft skills, who have the technical acumen and, are great fits for these small companies to the extent, a lot of them end up becoming founders as well to try to solve problems. At the same time, we've got firms that we're working with that are much larger, publicly traded, Fortune 1,500 maybe, that just need a workforce, right? They're trying to, create a pipeline. Maybe they're solving some DEI issues. So, it's really available to anyone. And we sort of joke that going back to the individual thing and what we're trying to do from a technology standpoint, it's 150,000 veterans a year. Let's say they're interested in like 300,000 things. So like, how do you sort of direct all that traffic when each individual is trying to do their own thing and figure their own way out. So, some of them are absolutely interested in, working for this big corporate job. Some of them, we found a good sweet spot in sort of this middle market private equity. I think that's a great spot for the soft skills because these are firms that are trying to grow, most of them or some of them, like they're at a certain size and they've reached that point where they need fresh talent. They need, people with these leadership skills that also, have the drive and the hunger and all that to come in and help drive new growth. And so, and it's a spot where veterans can have an outsized impact. You get plugged into like the biggest firms out there. You're just a cog in the wheel, right? And you sort of get consumed by that. But that leadership and management ability, I think, comes to the forefront when you're in a smaller environment, still well-resourced, still, growing and, not too small, but you're just not consumed by the machine, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And Jeremy, so with New North, you all are pretty focused on early stage startups, but it seems like it's a heavy focus into national security related industry. Probably a lot of dual use is top of mind right now, is what we're seeing as well. But I'm curious on your side of things, with maybe any sort of like advisory or input that goes into hiring for some of your portfolio. Have you seen any trends for maybe defense tech focused companies that you're working with? Have interest in some veterans that were end users, right, of some very similar technologies or products, and have that kind of like empathy on what the product does. I'm curious to hear from you've talked to a lot of these companies. So have you seen any trends with that?
Yeah, I mean, you see a huge demand for talent in different ways, and I think that's something that we see, and it's consistent across the startup community, and they're actively the ones that are hiring. So people think about, well, where do jobs come from? Who hires? Well, companies hire people, and they're more often than not the smaller organizations who are creating employment. Usually, big companies they have a pretty steady state for employment, and everybody tries to match and fill jobs and fill requirements in different ways. And so we've seen some of our startups, they're super excited about the skill bridge and fellowships that a company like Headlamp can provide. We have some who are like, no, I have a bunch of former service people. I'm a former serviceman or woman myself. I need to diversify my workforce. I don't need to double down in this area. The greater question on this dual use aspect is definitely very topical. I mean, we joke that there's a little bit of tourism going on because it is the new hotness, but it's I think a recognition that a lot of really interesting innovation comes from these deep tech themes. And love it or hate it, government is usually one of the organizations that can take these long-term bets, whether it's space, whether it's internet, whether it's some themes in biotechnical studies. Think about where vaccines have come from. It's usually been these long-term programs that have been invested in for years and years and years and years and years. And then there's a bunch of smart people who come out and they say, you know what? We're going to build a company around this particular idea. We're going to scale it. We're going to get a bunch of venture money, and then we're going to go public. We're going to get acquired. We're going to create a bunch of value, and then we're going to go rinse, repeat, and go do it again. And that, I think, is a pattern that we're excited about because there is a return to this hard tech environment. Not to say that there isn't more software stuff that we can do of information technology, just transforming things. That was an era I grew up in. But now it's a lot more lab-based. It's much more hands-on. It's software talking to robotic things. It's software talking to biologic things, and everything in the middle. So people who understand how to use all of that technology, understand how to embed that into business and to create value. Those are the people that are going to do well. And that's where we, again, going back to the theme on flexible team-based oriented people who, okay, you're a mechanical trained person, or you're a biology trained person, or you're a software trained person. Cool. Let's go work together, go make this thing happen, and see where it goes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We're actually looking to have a conversation with a couple of folks that are dissecting a lot of the role of like product manager is an interesting role because it really can come from so many different backgrounds. But within defense tech, this idea that a lot of folks say maybe they're like, oh, we got to have that Silicon Valley background. They must have come from sort of like a FANG background, but it's really the opposite of what you're looking for. You're looking for somebody who's been in the trenches, somebody who's been on the front lines and can truly attest to that usability of a product, if that's what you're referring to, of like a warfighter type of product. But I think it's just something that maybe is it's misconstrued with what has always been like the norm, or what you associate with great talent being out in Silicon Valley. And not to downplay, there's definitely great talent there, but thinking more about the use case of what is the product doing, and then transitioning that from like folks that are really mission oriented or operationally focused are these themes that come up when you're talking about a tech or a product being in the hands of a warfighter. So it's very, very different than maybe this little widget thing that's on an app that somebody else is building. But
and just to push on that, people think warfire military, like we're building stuff to like do kinetic things that go boom, and that's a very narrow part of the types of things that are there. It's logistics systems. It's you think about all the servicemen and women, they eat a lot. So like there's food stuff, there's nutrition, there's tons of technology. So a lot of people kind of get, I think, themselves into like this box where they say, you know what, I'm just thinking about the kinetic stuff. And this is where that, again, like Steve Case, Rise of the Rest, grew up outside of Boston doing tech stuff. So I was very cognizant that cool stuff can happen elsewhere. It doesn't just happen in like Silicon Valley or Silicon whatever, even though Silicon, there's a moniker for Silicon New Hampshire something. I don't know what it is, but Silicon Milliard. But you have literally a country of innovators and people who build stuff and make things. And what's also interesting is that the military was used by the U.S. government to export a lot of our expertise. So a number of airports, for example, around the world were constructed by the military. Army Corps of Engineers, for as an example. And so you go to Iceland, guess what? You're landing on either a British manufactured made runway or an American one, depending upon which airport you're going into. So like those are the types of things that are really fascinating to think about. And in the global nature of how we work, that I think is interesting. And the last thing I want to get to is like everybody thinks, oh, you need to have like this FANG background or whatever. We literally have one of our portfolio companies gets out, wants to start a company in aviation safety, says, I'm not worthy to go start a company. I know what I want to do. I know what I want to build. I know the product. I know how to do it. So he says, I need to go get an MBA from fancy school. And then I need to go work at one of those FANGs. And then I can start a company. And I think the advice that people like Steve and myself would have is like, no. Today, go start today because you probably can figure it out. And when you look at the backgrounds of people who have started things, they point to their experiences and sometimes the training or the school or the whatever is that, or the company they work for is that. But a lot of times it's, hey, I met this other person and we decided that we want to go tackle this problem. We wanted to solve it. We were on this mission together and let's go figure it out. And those are the best stories and those are the best founders.
I mean, we've had a number of people on from FANGs who've gone off to start companies and things like that. And I think what's interesting is your experience at that point, they've already made it. The big FANGs, they're there. They have all of these things, all these processes that are really designed around being who they are, these giant things that don't necessarily, if you weren't there in the early days, you're not actually getting that benefit that you think you're going to get. And I totally agree. I think the experience a lot of them was, then we went and started our company and we were amazed at all of the things we didn't have that we were just spoiled when
support teams galore.
Right. Like I had a platform team that was helping all the engineers. Like I didn't, like, this is all stuff that we had to like figure out. And it's like, it's almost counterproductive because then you start building things like, oh, well, we had this at such and such, so we should start working on that. And it's like, no, that's just a distraction. Figure out how to get to mission, how to get your product, get to value, so on and so forth. And so I do think that I tend to agree. The whole like go work at some large company, it's got some benefits. I'm not going to dismiss that. But at the same time, don't let that be your barrier. If you have a good idea, now's the time.
No, I mean, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Steve, you want to put a bow on it before we transition to the final segment, some final words from you.
Yeah. I mean, we hit a lot of great things there. I mean, I was just going to keep riffing on that last point, which is from a founder's perspective. I did an MBA at Wharton as I was leaving the military, and great education, and there's a lot of skills in there that'll be useful to me. But the things that are useful to me right now as a founder, getting from like -3 to 0, let alone 0 to 1, right? Jeremy met me at like -5, but you heard that story. So, but yeah, it's, I think there are a lot of lessons learned in the military, a lot of frameworks, a lot of, different problems that people had to solve that we draw from. And just trying to amplify that story, right? Every single veteran's sort of got that unique experience that they drew from, that they had, and this big machine is printing a lot of great quality, and then they put them out in the real world and they get a lot of great experience that offers unique value to a lot of places. And so our mission is like all day. What I do is just talk to employers about how to tap into that, how to leverage it and get the most out of it. So I appreciate the chance to sort of just talk about we love veterans, obviously, I'm one of them, but it's got to be more than just we heart veterans on your website kind of thing.
Right.
This is a way to win. And so
yeah, well, appreciate all the work you're doing for it, and as a fellow recruiter, God bless you, because it is not easy dealing with people all day. It's really, I could talk with you for hours. I remember on our discovery calls, it's really fascinating about military recruiting in general, and the trends of it, right? Because how is the military perceived, and how that changes as the global climate's kind of like in a whirlwind right now. There's a lot of things that feel like they're in disarray. Is that how's that impacting recruiting? Are people shying away, or are they feeling really patriotic about it? It's a fascinating space, and so taking all of that experience and how you transform that into corporate recruiting is just a really interesting use case, in my opinion. So we'll have to have a virtual drink for that one. We'll do a virtual drink and talk more about it. But I do want to go ahead, Steve.
With breakfast, yeah. Sorry,
Jeremy, you can bring the pancakes and the syrup, and we'll still do it.
There is maple syrup bourbon out there.
That's true.
Just saying.
There is. Delicious.
It sounds delicious.
If it's from New Hampshire.
It is delicious. It's from New Hampshire.
Awesome. Well, that was a good discussion, and I'm sure there's a lot of follow-ups that we can have on the topic, but I do want to wrap it up and kind of transition us into our final segment, the 5-second scramble. So a couple of quick, fun, rapid fire Q&A questions here. Mike, you're going to lead it off to Jeremy, and then I'll close it out with Steve.
Sounds good. All right. You ready, Jeremy?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. What's your favorite stage startup to invest in?
Early stage.
Any particular reason? Just quick.
Oh, because they can go anywhere. You can't predict how they're going to end.
Awesome. What's the biggest challenge facing startup founders for the rest of the year through 2024?
How fast to go? Go step on the pedal, spend a lot, or spend a little bit. That's tough.
What's your favorite part about the culture at New North Ventures?
A lot of things we talked about, team-based, a lot of different skills, younger, older, different perspectives, constant intellectual challenge.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, man. Invest in your team and let your team support you. Like it's virtuous circle.
Nice. If you could have a 1-hour mentor session with any tech giant, who would it be?
Man, that one's a tough one. I think of composite sketches so much. There's obviously the more mercurial people of like your Steve Jobses and the like, but I'm the Jim Collins and the DHHs of the world. I don't know. I'd want 5-minute like micro segments with a bunch of people.
That's awesome. I like that you use the word mercurial.
I think it's accurate for them.
Yeah, definitely. What was your childhood dream job?
A chemist.
Awesome. I understand you have a pilot's license?
I do.
What's your favorite airplane to fly?
The one that you're flying in, they're all different. They all have trade-offs. I love seaplane flying, but it's unless you're going for a mission of fun, which is perfectly great. They're not as practical as other planes are.
You ever done the barrel roll? Is that a thing?
That's a thing. Yeah, I'm familiar with some aerobatics.
On purpose?
Favorite airplane I've ever been in was a P-51 Mustang. That was cool.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's pretty sick.
What's something you hate to do but are really good at?
Spreadsheets. I mean, the math runs a lot of business, and you gotta represent.
Nice. That's a solid answer. What's a charity or corporate philanthropy that's near and dear to your heart?
Oh, there's so many. I mean, people that are doing workforce stuff. So educations are all 501c3s, are all not for profits. Third Option Foundation is a one that we support and care for. Honor Foundation. I mean, there's a bunch of good stuff.
All right, last one. If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be?
So this year, I am working on getting into welding. And man, that is a humbling activity. I mean, I don't know, 5-10 hours in, and like, whoa, it's pretty impressive with the stuff on YouTube where you're watching, like, man, that looks good. Hopefully, we'll get there someday.
What are you working on? What, you got a little piece you're working on?
Yeah, I made a ship, a little artistic ship. I'm gonna make a fish tank with my kids because my oldest and middle, their son and daughter. They're picking up some welding stuff too. So we're doing a fish tank first, and then I think the middle, the daughter loves different mediums, so she's gonna be off on a tear.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Welding's gonna be a good skill to have in the zombie apocalypse. So
I just want to be on the team. I'm gonna have electronics, flying, and welding, and so
yeah, I'm gonna bunker down with you, Jeremy. That sounds like you got a game plan. Good stuff. All right, let's close it out. Steve, are you ready?
I think so. Let's go for it.
All right. Explain Headlamp to me as if I were a 5-year-old.
We help veterans find jobs.
Simply put. What's your favorite part about being a founder of your own company?
Oh, I mean, 5 seconds is not enough time, but problem solving, like just being the ability to just be so mission focused, and choosing the problem and choosing the way you're going to solve it. Like that's just gold for me. It's a great feeling. Describe the culture at Headlamp. Headlamp is, man, I'm trained by some great leaders from special operations. And so we've got a culture of accountability. We've got a culture of, decentralized till I feel uncomfortable, empowerment. It's all about, trusting your teammates and empowering them. So that's where we're at. Yeah. What can folks be most excited about with Headlamp in the next 12 months? Just massive growth. I mean, we're taking off, providing all sorts of opportunities. There'll be some technology that'll improve things for, different interfaces, but just the number of opportunities and the great stories we'll be creating. What's one of the greatest traits that the military built in you transitioning into civilian life? For me, this might say something about my career, but resilience, like learning how to fail and just keep on going and pick yourself up. So, yeah. Well said. Who is a mentor in your life that has greatly influenced your professional career? I mean, I talked about some of the leaders. I mean, Brian Fenton, who's he's the general at U.S. Special Operations Command. He's the mentor to so many folks, but I probably learned the most. I spent most of my professional life with them, so learned quite a bit from guys like him. So it's been great. Very cool. What is an app on your phone that you can't live without? The Premier League Fantasy app. I mean, I'm on there probably more than I'm on anything else, to include email and work stuff. Now, I mean, yeah, that's my fun time. What is the most adventurous thing that you've ever done? Most adventurous thing. I mean, I've done all sorts of stuff, sometimes out of my will. Man, I just love exploring, just not knowing where we're headed and where we're going, and not being prepared for it, just figure it out as you go. So like I guess that's me. Yeah.
Have you ever flown with Jeremy?
I have. Yeah. I'm free fall qualified, so I felt pretty safe.
That's good to hear. That was the comfort level that you had. Love it.
That was great. You let me,
That's so fun.
So I was up there, I kept it level.
That's great. What is a charity or corporate philanthropy that's near and dear to you?
Honor Foundation, Jeremy mentioned that, great organization doing great things for a lot of people in my old community. Serving special operations, Commit Foundations, is another one out there that, serves the people that I served with. And so, always near and dear.
Cool. What was your dream job as a kid?
Dream job. Actually, there was a fighter pilot. I hate to say it. I wanted to be a fighter pilot at one point. I had a fascination with model airplanes and, all that when I was younger. And then I wanted to be a physicist, and I did that for a little bit. That's not quite when I was a kid. I was, going into college, but who knows how things will turn out.
All right, we're going to close it on a high note here. What is the worst fashion trend that you've ever followed?
Rolling your jeans. That was like going way back. That's just like ridiculous, but we all did it. You guys did it, maybe. Yeah, like it might have been.
I did.
Yeah, that's just horrible.
Do they call that pegging your jeans? Is that like when you rolled up?
There was like a special way to hold it. Yeah, you had to do it.
That might have been the name for it, but yeah, I don't know that I knew that at the time that I was doing it either. Just following the trend.
Good stuff. All right. Successful round of Q&A. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure having you all share your journey and your experiences with us, and fighting for a good cause here with veterans transitioning. So thanks for all that you do, and thanks for joining us on the pod.
Great.
Thanks so much.